Hey there, Transformers. Welcome to Work Transformed, the podcast that tackles the ever-evolving world of product development, project chaos, and everything in between. Each episode, we'll dive into the hottest trends, unpack the latest tools, and chat with inspiring guests who are leading the charge. So, buckle up, get ready to transform your work, and let's do this.
Hey, Transformers. Welcome to another episode of Work Transformed. I'm your host, Jackie Bittner. I'm joined always with Thomas Lenore, and we have a special guest today. We have someone that works in sales. His name is Joseph Dressler, and he is going to impart all of his wisdom on us. And we're going to go down many roads, as we normally do, to talk about sales, what it is, how do we integrate with them, what makes a good partner, Joseph's favorite color, all these things. So, Joseph, first, welcome. Welcome to Work Transformed. Say hi.
Jackie, it's so nice to be with you guys, to spend some time together. I'm sure we're going to have lots of fun. No, in all sincerity, thanks for being invited. I love talking about sales. I do even more so like talking about it from a partnership perspective and what that means as far as helping different companies and different groups work together. So I'm curious to see what it is.
He's already using our favorite kind of words, partnership, like helping people work together. This is going to be a good episode.
He's a good salesman.
I will throw out there, Joseph, that I'll probably stop you throughout the show if there's any like terms that you use that may not be familiar with our group. I think this will be one of our first project management, change management related topics. And I think so often in order to do good change management, you have to partner across the organization, including with your sales teams and finance and HR and legal. And so I think it's helpful to start bringing those aspects into the conversation. So I'm excited to see where today takes us.
I mean, like we always say, if you know what the other side is thinking, it's much easier to work with them. So hopefully we can bring a little light.
Absolutely.
So Joseph, can you tell us a little bit about you? Tell us about who you are, what you do, where you work, where you don't work.
Where I work and where I don't work? I don't work at a lot of places. That could take the whole section if you want to know where all the places I put work. As my father would say, I was born at an early age. I'm currently now a father of a loving teenage daughter. If anybody in the audience has had a teenage daughter, you know exactly what I'm going through at this moment. I consider myself a doer, Jackie, which is how you and I know each other, right? We don't just think about things. We try to figure out how to get them done. I'm a partner today to a wonderful woman who owns an incredible small business, which actually has opened my mind a lot to how customers react to things. I think many of us on this call think about our lives more on the B2B landscape versus like a B2C landscape. And it's pretty remarkable to think when you talk about marketing materials or you talk about messaging, you talk about pricing, that the everyday consumer is affected by all those things. And some of them, as well thought out as those ideas may be, some of them really react poorly to small changes. As Garth would say in Wayne's World, like he fears change, and many people feel that same way. So when it comes to me, I'm a big fan of business and trying to figure out how do you use logic and reason to get people to do what is right for them, not in the short term necessarily, but more about in the long term.
And I'm curious before we get too far in, and this is totally unnecessary information for me, but what kind of business does your wife operate?
She owns different Pilates studios, both in New York and Wilmington, North Carolina. So giving back, female empowerment, giving back to the world, and really remarkable to see the people's both mental and physical changes by being customers of the studio. It's really great.
Yeah.
Super cool. Thank you for sharing. All right, Joseph. So you made a comment a little bit earlier about how we know each other because we are doers. So for everybody's knowledge, Joseph and I used to work together in the last company I was at, and he was part of the sales team. And when I joined, we had an interesting project trying to get lifted off the ground, but there wasn't a ton of organization around it, at least from my perspective, when I hopped in. So I guess, can we just go down the partnership road right away?
Sure.
What was it that was missing that we then tried to find to get people to work together? Because I don't think, from my view, from my little angle, there wasn't a lot of partnership going on. Not a lot of people talking to each other. A lot of great ideas, but not a lot of traction. What was going on there?
So I think you bring up a really fundamental part, and there's a line that a friend of mine's used for years, which I think about all throughout business and real life in general, which is, don't solve for the symptom, solve the disease, right? And so Jackie, when you bring up your point of the history that you and I have together, we felt and saw a really important area, which was the overall issue the company was trying to solve was being solved in silos by finance, by legal, by sales, by project management, by account management. And there was never anyone to connect the pieces. And when I say that, because Thomas, you were going to call me out by saying things that are too big, so I'm going to be very specific whenever humanly possible. There was no one who was working across the silo to say, wait, sales, you're having a problem because you can't do A and B. But because you can't do A and B, that's affecting finance who can't do C and legal that can't do D. So let's think about what is the solution that gets the company first and foremost in a better spot. Sales, we might only solve 60% of your problem, but if that moves the company 85% of the way forward, that's a win for everyone. And it's going to make everybody's lives a little better. So Jackie, if I go back to your question, which was partnership, right? And what was missing, first and foremost, it's the simple C word, which is communication, right? There was not a clear, concise communication across the different departments that allowed for an understanding of what are we trying to solve for and why is that helpful? The what and the why.
You know, that resonates a lot with me from obviously not our working history because we just met 5 minutes ago. But it resonates just from past projects and initiatives I've worked on. One of the things that came to mind immediately was really sales oriented. Like in my last role, I worked a lot with helping to define organizational KPIs or goals or milestones or whatever you want to call them. And then supporting the leaders within each function to get to those goals. And one of them was us seeing this revenue target, which is probably a goal for every company. We got a revenue target, let's hit it. And one of the things that I noticed in working with the sales team leadership specifically was that they often said things like, we don't know why the product can't do this. We just know it can't. We don't know when this will be on the roadmap, but we know we've requested it several times. There was all of these questions that they were saying that they didn't know the answer to, as if we worked at some black box company where it was like, the answer is impossible to know. It's just like, there is a question, there is no answer.
Top secret answers all around. You need clearance.
The company had 250 employees total. Like, from the janitors all the way up to the C-suite, there were 250 people. And it was like, well, have you asked anyone? And I noticed a lot of times, you're talking about the importance of communication. There was no communication. No one outside their function, that is, was talking to anyone else. And I think there was this fear or this stigma or maybe this lack of permission. And so I'm just curious from your perspective as a salesperson, how do you start to build that bridge so that you can communicate better with people who don't sit in sales?
Yeah, this goes back to human behavior. Most of what we deal with every day goes back to human behavior. And my strategy, my style, my approach, whatever keyword you want to kind of throw in there is trust is earned, right? It's not taken. And so when you walk into a new company or a new situation or whatever, no one fundamentally trusts you. They'll say they do on the outside, but they don't, right? They don't whatsoever. They'll be nice to you to your face, but not anywhere else. Jackie had to earn trust when we worked together. Like she didn't have her right at all. And then she smiled and she said smart things. And I was like, oh, this girl might actually know what she's doing. This could be worthwhile. But Thomas, like back to your question, my approach is the first thing I try to do with different departments is not only see it from their vantage points and then say the words back to them in language I know they're going to appreciate, but try to find an early stage project that helps them more than it helps me. Because if I can do those two things, they know I'm aligned with what they're saying and I'm actually leaning in, right? So one last line I'll use and then I'll let you guys jump back in is the idea of I believe to the core of my body that there are people who say the right things and there are people who do the right things. And I was always a believer in doing the right things versus sometimes saying the right things. I might say the wrong things, but still do the right things. There are plenty of people we work with who say the right things, but don't actually end up doing them. And it's just a waste of our time and effort.
I honestly, Joseph, I'm familiar with this from you because I know that one of my artifacts that I was trying to create was like simple roadmap view, right? And one of the things that you had done, this was not me building trust with you, this was you building trust with me, was sit down and say, these are the things, these are the inputs we needed. And I will say that there was a great step in an amazing direction, because then we just kept flowing and kept all the communication going. But the thing that stood out to me is the language that people appreciate. So it's almost like bringing things to terminology where each department can understand them, because each department speaks a different language. And that's like usually a program manager's job, is to try to figure out how to get those things communicated across. And also, the other thing that kind of just jumped in my mind, this is a tangent topic, but a lot of the things you said also kind of fall in line for like what you do as a change manager in order to drive progress forward, especially when it comes with developing a product or an offering, right? There is like little experiments that you can do along the way to make sure you're on the right track, because you don't want to go too far and create this thing that nobody then wants. But if you're lacking that trust and that communication, that's where things kind of fall on their faces. So no questions, just observations on all these things. That I will have more questions, but just some observations on kind of your approach to sales. And really, all right, so how do we make this sales oriented? And I'm just going to be very frank. I don't have a ton of experience working within our sales teams to the level that I did in my last position. They were partners. We would do things in terms of talking about like what our go-gets were versus where the product roadmap was. And that was great. But what sales specific? I want to know, like, what do you want people to know about the sales teams that we just don't know? And I can tell you from Thomas and my adventure here, I've learned a lot more about sales in the last 6 months than I have my whole life, because we're working with a CRM system. We're looking for leads. We're doing our things. But what do people don't know that broadly? What do you want them to know if you had to talk to an organization or just a group of wonderful podcast listeners? What should they know?
Love audience listening to the best. I wonder, do you know the percentage of your listeners who are working out at this moment?
In a gym? Like working out?
It could be anywhere. They could be running, they could be on a Peloton, they could be outside, they could be anything.
I mean, at this moment, I don't have that data for you now.
I'm curious. You should try to find out how active they are, how actively listening they are. So your question about what do I want other teams to know about sales? I mean, I'd start with the most obvious line, which is sales is not the enemy. We're really not, right? We might act like it sometimes, and I will apologize on behalf of us. We have some bad actors in our group, to say the least. But we're not the enemy, right? We're trying to drive more revenue on behalf of our company that we represent. That revenue is what allows everyone to get paid a bi-weekly or monthly salary, depending on what you do, right? It allows for bonuses to get paid. And ideally in the future allows us to both hire more people to support the work and get everybody raises. So we have a mission that says, how do we make the company more profits and more money? Or money is first, we'll put our profits in a second. And I think sometimes that's missed. With that said though, right, there are plenty of people in sales who are myopic in how they approach incremental revenue that misses what's better for the organization. I'll use a silly example from the early 2000s in the publishing days. We had some people sign multi-million-dollar deals that looked phenomenal. Who doesn't want to sign a multi-million-dollar deal? But after all of the editorial and video production, which obviously back then cost a lot more money than it costs today, right? A $1.5 million gross deal costs us almost $700,000 in costs, right? In production and studio time and everything else. But that's the deal ended up only profiting a few $100,000 when everything was all said and done, versus being like it should have profited over $1.1 billion, right? And so that was an example of a seller selling a vision, but not the value back to the organization that was important.
Interesting.
Right? And I think that, okay, Thomas.
No, you finish your thought first.
I was going to say, I think that's where the partnership come back into play, which is, if sellers are run by a leadership in sales who's only top line focused, you're going to have chasms within the organization. If the leadership in sales is not cooperating with account management, finance, legal, creative, whoever the case may be, you're going to have chasms in the organization. So part of this is based off leadership and how well connected they are to the different groups within the organization. And part of it also is how well structured, structure is probably the right word I want to use, with how structured they are with their own sales team, so that people understand where are the lines they can run fast, or what I call guardrails, right? Where can you go fast within the guardrails, and where are you going to break things if you go outside of the guardrails? giving that in a clear format allows sales to not be the enemy, but to really drive success on behalf of the organization.
You talked about a lot of things, and one thing that hit home for me was this idea that your sales team is really enabling it's kind of enabling the rest of the company to function. And without sales, you have no money. Without money, you don't have a job. But one of the things that was often difficult for me as a leader was to help my team understand how they could better enable sales, because so much of it felt like sales it, product and engineering, because I come from a SaaS tech background, product and engineering build it, everyone else is kind of just like off on an island, and like we don't have any direct correlation to like helping sales. And I was like, I don't know that that's true. And so I'd love to hear if you have a talk track of how you feel like other functions outside of sales can better support you all in your day.
Sure. Well, let me take your question in two parts. I think the first part of that product is really important. And I still believe to this day that many companies don't do this well, which is if sales are responsible for revenue, they're only selling something that the product team has created, right? We're not selling air, right? We're not in Spaceballs here with the cans of air at the end.
Although during the pandemic, you probably could have sold cans of air.
Could have sold.
Probably bought it.
It could have been good, right?
Missed opportunity.
So in that perspective, product owns product, what it can do, what it can't do. And also in some ways, they have to be responsible for what is the value proposition to the marketplace, meaning what is it solving? Ideally, no company is building a product that isn't solving a problem, right? And that, Thomas, the reason I brought that up first is as I think about your question, I think about it in two parts. The first part is to me, the obvious part, which is how well is product describing or translating what the thing they built actually does? What does it not do? And or why can't it do the thing that it's supposed to do? Right? And sometimes there's perfectly good reasons for it. And sometimes the reasons are, oh, we've never spoken to a customer. That's great insight. Do other customers feel the same way? Yes, 64% of our customers said if the widget can do A and B, they'd use it twice as often. Oh, we had no idea, right? And that gets put then on the product roadmap because it's prioritized. So there's that part. And the second part, which I kind of thought out because of your question, is really more across the board. And it actually goes back to the earlier part of our conversation, which is good leadership that communicates horizontally, not vertically. Right. So the more I can talk to my marketing department and find out what's important to them, and then translate that back to either what's helping the sales team or not. Right. I can use an easy example here, which is marketing department love to put decks together. Love a good deck.
You need a good deck.
Never, do you?
Well, I guess it depends.
If you need a deck.
But my decks were not very pretty. They just had some stuff on it. The bare minimum. That's what we did.
But that's why I bring that up, though, because, you talk to a lot of companies and need marketing material. It could be 15, 25, 30 pages long. And for a half an hour meeting, you're going to get through 3 to 5 of those slides.
Yeah.
And so are they built? And then the second part is, are they built in a manner that tells a narrative to a customer in the manner that the customer is trying to solve its problem? Right? So, Thomas, I can sell you a car, but I don't know if you need an SUV to go off the road or carry a big family, or you need a sports car because you're driving down Lakeshore Highway, really fast. Right? Like those are two very different needs.
I know this example.
I agree, and having the knowledge to support that value prop and the understanding, I think is key, because I've worked with organizations where they have a sales enablement team that sits within sales that helps a product, and they kind of get some understanding. Like, there's no real the sales team members themselves are on these calls. You can tell when you listen to gongs or recordings or whatever tool you're using. That the salesperson has no clue what they're really talking about. They're just using these like words from the script and like place them in at the right time. And I agree. I think it's really up to sales to provide you with a lot of that context, not to make you an expert, but to say, here's why we have done this, because we've heard A, B, and C things from our clients.
Yeah.
So,
I want to dive in and double click on something you mentioned.
Dive in and double click.
Did you say double click?
double click, dive in. I want to zoom in with the microscope. All right. Anyway, I'm full of.
Do half the people even know what double click means anymore? No one uses a mouse.
Oh, I just aged myself.
Either, but they know that that's the same icon.
All right, I would like to go through the looking glass. And you mentioned having like this partnership with product. Product owns their product. They own this value proposition. And you made a comment about how like have they put it in front of a customer? Has product been in front of the customer and gotten that customer feedback? And this is something I've always been so genuinely curious about, because as as an agilist, we talk about the voice of the customer or the voice of a client a lot. And we talk about putting in place these very valuable feedback loops, but in practice, it's hard to know, like, when are we getting in front of a customer? Have you seen like sweet spot, like every X amount of time, if you show off something to a customer, do you get good, valuable feedback? Do customers not want to be involved that much? Like, what happens on your side of the house when it comes in terms of that customer feedback or that customer engagement?
That question, like Shrek in like the ogre in Shrek, right? It has many layers.
Many layers. Okay.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No, it's a good one. It's a very good one. Let's start with it. I mean, I think that first and foremost is sellers are always cautious about what we put their quote unquote clients through, right? Because technically anything.
I love that caveat you put in front, their clients, because I do when sales teams feel like there is this sense of like, this is my person, this is my contact, especially if they do have a book of business that they brought to the organization. Like, I can't just put anybody in front of Jim or Allie.
And to be fair, Thomas, to your point, I said that word on purpose because that's exactly how many sellers feel. As much as we try hard than not to, they are the originator of the relationship, right?
Well, they don't want to jeopardize any element of that relationship. Correct. They don't want this person to feel like their time has been wasted, because that equals a negative value. But continue.
And the worst part is, remember, sellers are motivated, number one, by
making money.
Right? And so if there's any risk that the client would not use our product moving forward or not continue to grow with our platform, right? That is a risk people are unwilling to take because it directly affects their pocketbook or their Zelle account. I'll modernize that term because no one has a pocketbook anymore.
Hey, double click on that.
With a mouse? So I think that's part one.
Okay.
Contact.
I was going to say something about the no risk taking is so interesting to me, because I feel like sales take so many risks all the time, just putting themselves out there. But it's almost like the script gets flipped once you have like a bonded relationship with a client. Then it becomes like this nervous place to set people up in front of. Okay, go ahead.
Without using examples that would incriminate maybe any three of us on the call, but it's no different than dating. You might be a little bit more advantageous in the first 2 or 3 dates to try to make a point. Sometimes you're not. Some people are super conservative. Sellers could be the same way. Sometimes you're super aggressive right in those first few dates because you want to make yourself better known, or like you're cool in a certain way, or whatever it might be, right? But once that relationship is intact, especially when the monetary risk for a seller now is incredibly high, there is no risk in the beginning, right? Unless you know it's a client you should close. Maybe you take that a little bit more cautiously. But in the beginning, if you're trying to get a major client to come aboard, you're willing to do anything you can to show them a difference. Why are you different? Why is the company different? Why is the product different? How am I solving your problems, Mr. Client? But once that's established, right, and contracts are written, now I just see there being risks that they're not going to come back, less about the benefits that they're going to say.
Got it. Well, and this is also very insightful, because I know that sometimes like what we look for from the product and engineering side is like, well, what's the feedback? Do we have any info on this? And having this kind of understanding that there is an element of nervousness that comes with taking like the risk of putting a client in a position that they are unhappy about, like this can drive a better conversation now, and like maybe get more specific on what it is you're trying to learn, and like maybe have it only be a couple moments of time instead of a big day workshop or whatever it is. Now I'm solutioning a non-problem, but
And then when you think about it, Jackie, to the point you're bringing up, there's really three types of clients that we think about from a sales perspective. You've got the client who never wants to do anything, right? Don't want to talk to you. I've run a relationship with you. I'm doing business, but like you do the thing you do. I don't need anything from you. I'm good, right? That's fine.
Okay.
With perfectly good customer later on. Then you've got the ones you're like, I'd love to engage once in a while, but you're not a high priority for me. But I'm happy to talk to you guys from time to time and like answer a few questions. Maybe I'll ask
Okay.
you for some things, right? But they're what I call moderately engaged. And then you have the tip of the spear, 5-10% of customers who are like, I want to know everything you're doing all the time, and I'd love to give you feedback on it. You show me roadmaps, show me screenshots, show me examples of products, show me ideas you're thinking about that aren't even live yet. I'd love to give you feedback on it. So as a seller, you're kind of like 40, 40, 20, maybe in that sense, or even like 45,
Okay.
40, 10, or 50, 30, 20, I guess, in that scenario. Right. So you're trying to think through what do I need to get in front of a client? And then who's the persona of the client that's going to react well to this?
How do you leverage, especially if you work in an organization that has like their product development is siloed across maybe multiple pods or areas,
Yeah.
and so you got product leaders for feature A, product leaders feature B, product leaders feature C. How do you manage the requests from all of those folks? Because even if you got clients who are excited and eager to give feedback, you probably can't support 10 requests a month from each of these verticals
Right.
and still maintain a healthy relationship with these folks. At some point, you're overwhelmed. How do you balance the need for feedback with the need to still, prioritize the time and focus on your client?
So that's a great question because that's a very real question that happens all the time. So I respect the question, Thomas. I think in that scenario, the answer is really two or threefold. The first part is you got to know who you asked and what their reaction is. So Thomas, if you were my client and I showed you something on April 15th that was a net new product and you were wishy-washy about it and was like, cool, here's my feedback. Like it's not very special. I'm much more hesitant to show you something moving forward than I am if you were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Keep showing me stuff because this is incredible, right? So I got to play off historical performance to figure out what the future opportunity is. I think that's kind of part one. And I think the second part is I can't be a sales leader or run a sales team that never gets clients to give product team feedback because that's just going to make the harsh reality worse. Meaning product's just going to come at you harder to be like, I need client reactions. Why are we not getting client reactions? So there's a balance here, right? Which says if there's 7 groups and each group wants feedback every month, I've got to look at which clients have asked, what is their reaction? And then I also have to figure out where in the product life cycle are we showing things and where is the value proposition to the market, right? So am I showing a piece of product that no one cares about today, right? Or am I showing something that is AI driven and everyone's going to go Google because I have the words AI in front of it, even though no one really understands what that means.
I just pop it in the title. Everybody will be excited.
Right.
There's your
Exactly.
short-term feedback strategy. I guess that's a great call out though, because that's part of like the jobs. I mean, this is where I see some parallels like between what program managers or agile coaches and like maybe sales does with their clients is there's these soft skills that you have to always kind of lean on. And like I would say knowing like which client was excited by something versus which wasn't, being able to be thoughtful on who you're going to engage with, I think comes with having some of those soft skills.
Yep. Yep. I mean, look, so much of the stuff I said earlier today, but it's true, right? I mean, the best businesses understand human behavior. The other
Mm-hmm.
parts of the business are just skills, right? Can you do finance? That's a skill, right? Can you do marketing? That's a skill. But the human behavior, how we communicate, is something that's become so hard to teach and so hard to encourage because we live in a world of texting. I'm just going to fire off a quick text to someone, right?
Let
I'm
me
going to
slack
send them
you.
an emoji as a reaction, which I don't even know what that means anymore in some scenarios, right? You have to translate emojis. My 14-year-old daughter just writes in code. I literally have to like go to ChatGPT and ask what the code means. I don't even know,
She's
right?
using the slang of the younger
This
generation.
of the younger generation, correct? Yes.
Is
I
it the
will
slang of the younger generation or is the slang of the AI machine that they're trying
That's
to
anything possible. I'd give it all. I literally sometimes I'm like, can you just translate this for me so I can respond appropriately and leave you alone? She loves.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
am not going to try to speak in cool lingo because I double click on things and that's where we're
Oh,
at.
you do. You love a good mouse. It's true. But Jackie, you've always been cool in my eye.
Oh, yes. That makes one person on this call.
Quick question, actually. Just when was your last vision exam? Because if she's always been cooling her eyes, you may need to double click on that last eye result.
Love you too. All right.
Thomas, it's the hair. It's always been the hair. That's Jackie's their signature move.
And it's not even like, what'd you say, Thomas?
We just did a podcast about your hair.
We did talk about my hair. It's not even colorful right now, but that's going to change soon. We did do that. That was amazing. All right. Now that I've gotten wildly distracted, let's go back to sales. Can we talk? Okay, so something that I don't know very well, but know like a little bit about working with finance and some of those transformation projects, and like, you know, seeing kind of the back end of like Salesforce or a CRM system. Like what does like a typical sales cycle look like if you're in like the technology world? Like, lay that out for me. Is it all different for different clients? Is it predictable? Is it wildly unpredictable? Like, what do we got going on?
I think everybody who gets paid to write books will tell you it's completely predictable. I think everybody who actually does the work will tell you it's formulaic without predictions and timing. So, are there certain steps that every cycle should go through to be successful? Absolutely. If you miss one of those cycles, do you have a better shot than not than screwing up the deal? Absolutely true. But is it always the same where you must talk to this person first? You must spend 2 weeks doing the following thing before you get to solution designs. After solution designs, you're writing up a strategy. After a strategy, you're in negotiation. Like, no. That stuff can change based off the organization, based off their own timing and desire. So if you get a client who's actively in need for a solution that you have to offer, your speed to market, your concept of how you can get more people engaged on the phone with you from the buying side is way quicker than someone you have to first educate about a problem they're not even aware is a problem in the market. Right? But some of the stuff I deal with today is that we're literally teaching people some of the core problems in programmatic advertising that no one's ever really been aware of before. So first is the teaching, then it's the validation with the one key person, your champion. Then they have to bring in other people. And then the hardest part is the idea of change management, which obviously is perfect for this conversation because change management means using a new technology they were not at all prepared to start using. How do they get out of old contracts? Do they have to? What does that mean for value propositions, contract rates? Who has to learn this new technology? Who's going to be a user of it? How quickly can they onboard it? What help can we give them? Right? All of the risk factors come really highly into place towards that 70% range in a deal when you're a challenger. Because now everything's real to them. Now, a former colleague, Jackie of ours, who wasn't, I don't think you met him when we worked together, but him and I were discussing a book called Jolt. And the idea was like in sales is the jolt effect, which means like you're all for things, you're running forward, everything's great until it's real. And as soon as you get into the signing process, you're like, whoa, wait a second. This is making it up, $1 million project. And now my face is on the line because I'm going to sign the paperwork or encourage my boss to sign the paperwork for this $1 million thing we're about to do. Whoa. Right? And things slow down or even stall at that moment because it's too scary to move forward. Even though the solution is so important to their business, there's still risk associated to it.
It's funny because you're describing something that I think not only happens in a business transaction, but like happens often even in like personal transactions. I'll share a very brief story. When I bought my first house, I don't know why I call it my first, but when I bought the house I live in now, I remember having crunched all the numbers before, but like I crunched like, oh, it'll cost me this much in homeowners insurance by itself. Oh, it'll cost this much in electricity by itself. But I remember when I got to I don't know, some point in the deal where you have to sign all of these like lending papers, and they have to disclose to you what the monthly payment is, which is an amalgamation of all these things: insurance, taxes, your principal. And I remember the lady said, "Shoot, I left a page on the photocopier. I need to go grab it. I'll be right back." And during that time, I was looking at the number and I was like, it's not too late. I didn't start signing any of these papers yet. If I get up and leave before the lady gets, I swear to God this happened. I told myself, if I got up and left before the lady got back from the photocopier, they can't make me buy this house. Like, I can just not buy it. Like, it's okay. And for a solid 3 minutes, I sat there and freaked out because it became very real. It went from, oh, insurance is only $100 a month. Oh, my principal payment will only be $600 a month, to like, oh, now they've added it all together and it's $1,600 a month. Oh, that's a lot. Like, that's more than I bargained for. And so, like, I obviously bought the house because I'm seeing it right now. But I think it's real. Like, people, when it's an idea that you're just kicking the tires on, it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna definitely buy this software because it's gonna help. We're gonna definitely buy this new thing. But when you're actually like about to sign the paperwork, you're like, hold on, what if it fails? What if I was the champion and the spokesperson for this and it doesn't get adopted? What if? And the what if monster comes out?
I love it. It's true. It's definitely true, right? Thomas, did you walk out or did you buy the house?
No, I did not walk out. I bought the house. But it was a challenge. I will tell you that. I remember where the exit was. I remember looking at the photocopy. So I was like, I could walk past the photocopy without her seeing me if she's in the right angle. Like, it was a whole thing I went through.
You had crafted a rollback plan in the moment.
It was a real time rollback. It was not pre-drawn up.
Oh my goodness. But that just kind of goes along with the theme of most of the things that we end up talking about anyway. And that is like the whole change management aspect of it and the very, very human side to change there is. Because if it was just a bunch of robots making these decisions, I'm sure that they would just sign and move on. They know the risk. They're going to train. They're going to do this. But because we are all humans, because these things have great stakes, because we want to feel supported, like, I guess, does sales feel supported by like change management professionals or trainers or the people that they're working with? Like, how do we get all of our people to feel supported so that these signatures and decisions can be made quickly?
That's a great question. I mean, probably the real answer is sales likely rarely feels supported, but because they're a little egocentric and a little selfish, it's probably also true. Being a seller, that's why I'm sharing that. And so, Max, what I mean by that is, if you go back to the earlier part of our conversation, everybody loves a good podcast that ties it all together. So I'll help you with that right now. It'll be great. Great. When we talk about the what and the why, right? If there was better communication back to sales that says, this is what we're doing to support you and this is why we're doing it. And then sales was smart enough and mature enough to say, well, what about these two other things? And they got equally responsive decisions back, not because people said yes to sale all the time. God, we should not say yes to sale all the time. Even as a seller, we should not do that. But we should absolutely be mature enough and adult enough and smart enough to give really detailed answers as to what we're doing and why we're doing it for the company. And then sales will understand what their role is in that, right? So if I know a certain feature will never be produced for any number of reasons, I will certainly start to make sure I don't talk about a feature like that, or I move clients away from that commentary when they bring it up to me. But if I don't know it and somebody's like, oh, it's on the roadmap, the classic it's on the roadmap conversation, right? If I'm just told as a pushover line that, oh, it's on the roadmap, could be Q4, could be 2025, you should be sure I'm going to go to market continuing talk about it.
I think that's fair. And that's a symptom of people just saying yes all the time, which is also very challenging, right? There's a lot of anxiety about saying no. But did we talk about saying no before, Thomas? Because we're big fans.
No. But I do have a question because, Jackie, your question kind of was like, does sales feel supported generally? And then you snuck in this, like, do change management professionals help you? Like, I have never worked in an organization where the sales team had any direct or even dotted line interactions with, like, formal change managers, project managers, things of that nature. I would say the closest thing is like a customer success organization that helps, a customer think through what change management looks like on their end. And usually that's even like pretty playbook cookie cutter stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, have you had a different experience? Has there ever been an organization where you're like, oh, we have a staff of people who can help us think through this if we don't?
No.
I didn't.
No, it's to your point, it's very rare. I mean, I think Jackie and I had the privilege of meeting because of the work I was doing that Jackie was brought in to try to make much better. I wasn't leading that project. I was only involved in it. But the people who knew I was involved knew I was doing it more than just a sales point of view, because I had a different level of expertise than other people had in that specific capacity. And so when Jackie came in, she was told to talk to me. And then we were able to talk as if it wasn't sales, because it wasn't. It was, how do we finish this thing on behalf of the company? I knew the benefits it would have to my clients. And you could be sure that I steered her in directions that I knew would benefit the revenue side of the organization. Of course I did. But I did it with an open mind of what else needed to happen for this to come forward. But you're correct, Thomas. Like, it is rare, very rare, that an everyday seller has any sort of engagement with somebody that we would call a change management agent.
I don't know why, but that brought a different question to my mind. What's your outlook? This is a very pointed question. What's your outlook on business development? The last few folks I've talked to in a sales capacity are like, business development as we know it is changing. Like, there are no cold calls anymore because no one has a desk phone. There are no this, there are no that. Like, how do you see that function existing in the future, or do you?
That's exactly how I feel about it. It's 100% how I feel about it. That was incredibly well done, nicely timed. It wasn't even an organ or like a fake sound machine. Well
I
done.
guess my son is going to be a sales leader one day.
So, look, Thomas, I mean, business development is business development, sales, like every company defines that differently. You have some companies who literally have a BD team, which is responsible for getting net new clients to take a meeting. Nothing more than that, right? And I think that's become an incredibly difficult job for 2 or 3 reasons. The first and foremost is we don't work in offices nearly as much anymore. And therefore, and even when we do, there isn't an office phone number anymore. So you're calling people's cell phone. Getting access to that is not easy, and it feels incredibly intrusive no matter who you are, right? So I think that's part one. I think part two is the idea that email has been bastardized by AI and other technologies that are out there that allow everybody to send out hundreds, if not thousands, of emails that are completely spammy, that are not at all personalized, and this happens constantly. And for everyone who's listening, if you sent out a 5-part series where the last part has a crying cat or Miss Piggy who's crying or something else that's sad because I haven't returned your email, you are not a professional whatsoever. Just not a business.
Wow, this sounds like based on a true story, and now I have more questions.
No, I
Oh
have
gosh.
hundreds of these examples of gifts that have been sent to me. The "it's not me, it's you" breakup story. I was like, are we in a real world right now, or just in some fantasy world that's happening?
Both.
So Thomas, going back to your question, I think it's very hard. I mean, I won't tell you all the things that we do, but we use a lot of in-person or personal touches on outbound outreaches, including how the subject line works, including what we've read about the company or the person, thinking about conferences, connecting through other social media tools that could be available to us. Like, we're trying to think of all the other ways besides just sending out, oh, I sent my 3,000 emails today that no one's ever going to read it, look at, because they all sound and look the same. Right? We're trying to be much better than that. And it takes more time and effort. And maybe there's a way that one day AI and its automation comes together, but I don't know. It's not yet. I haven't personally seen it work where really individual emails are being sent out that would make the reader who possibly opened it less than 10, 15% of the time if you're a B2B email, actually believe that email was meant for them and not just some spam piece of crap that was put together.
That's pretty in line with what I think other folks are saying. And I think you all, being the sales industry, I guess sales is not an industry in and of itself, but the sales discipline, there we go. I think, yeah, I think that's going to be a evolution of like, how do you get new business? I think for the last year or two, it's been about retention. Like, how do we retain the customers that we have, keep our existing book of business? But I think the next revolution, once pocketbooks get a little looser, is like, how do we start to really rev up sales in a meaningful way? My son really agrees with that.
He loves
Yeah,
it.
he's
He's
into
ready.
it. He's into this one.
Yeah.
Well, Thomas and Joseph, what are your final questions before we do our final wrap up?
Did I ask you any question?
Sure.
I mean, what are you having for dinner tonight?
Oh, we are having salmon with garlic spinach for dinner tonight.
How
And
is
normally I don't know. Huh?
How is this thing being prepared?
I believe it will be grilled with some semblance of seasonings on top of it. Potentially a lime. I'm not really sure. I will not be cooking it today.
This is very well thought through, Jackie. If you all were to ask me, I'd be like, I don't know. Whatever you name for burger, that you can either cook or warm up. I don't have any clue.
Well, normally I don't know, but we cooked over the weekend and we had to make a choice on what to cook and what to save for Tuesday. And so that's the only reason I know.
Oh, glad you know, because we were gonna grill yesterday, and then I did yard work and didn't feel like it, and so I took out some chicken that I was going to put on the grill and did not. So we'll be having chicken. How it will be prepared, I don't know.
But
and Joseph?
Jackie, one last question for you.
Yes.
When might the amazing world that is outside of your house be ready to experience a children's book, unlike all other children's books?
Oh, that's so funny. It is in its final tracing stages. One page left.
Okay.
And then I need to scan and color it. So I know this is going to seem like a far out target, but I know what my progress has been like. So potential Q3-ish. Look at Joseph's already marketing my my side project with my garbage truck songbook. We've never talked about that on the show. I don't think.
It needs to be ready by October so we can sell it during holiday season.
Okay, thank you.
Look at that. He's already working sales cycles into your unfinished children's book.
If you have questions about my children's book, just email me, and we'll talk about it then. Thomas, are you doing wrap up today, or would you like me to take the reins? I know we had our littlest guest join.
I will do some of wrap up. I will try. Most things get too turbulent over here.
Let's do it.
Just I'll be honest, some of your thoughts were so captivating that I did not take notes because I was so drawn in that Jackie will definitely have to supplement. But this is what I got. We kicked off talking about what it looks like to be a partner. How do you become a partner with sales? How does sales partner with others? And you talked about the importance of not trying to solve the symptom, actually solving what matters for the business. And you said for that, communication is really key. Communication is the start of any partnership. And I love this comment that you said, trust is earned, it's not taken. And so, I really took that as we got to roll up your sleeves. You can't just say you want to be a partner. You have to show that and demonstrate that in all your actions and the ways in which you engage with folks. And you gave an example of starting off doing an early stage project that's more beneficial to the other person than it is to you, really showing that like, I'm here to make your life easier. And hopefully you will reciprocate that and do the same in the future. We talked about how important it is to do the right thing versus just saying the right thing and showing up to every day the way you want to be as not only a leader, because I think that's a great leadership lesson, but also as a partner, showing up and being genuine. We then move into this idea of sales 101. What is sales and how do we describe to others? And you said sales is not the enemy. Sales is really the enabler. It helps to make sure that we have the money and subsequently the profits to be able to do all the things that we have to do. And most importantly, to be able to pay you, because I think you want to be paid. You talked about how it's in most companies, especially product-led organizations, it's really important for sales and product to have that strong relationship and not for product to think sales is trying to step on their toes, because really product is the owner of defining what that value prop is and helping to really flesh out a product that meets that value prop. And it's important for sales then to have that partnership and that understanding of what is the value prop, why are we building the things that we're building, and then to a point that was made several times throughout the podcast, really understanding here is the timeline, here is what the roadmap looks like, here's why kind of some of these things exist, so you can or cannot talk about certain things with your clients and keep them happy. Yep, that was his favorite part.
Yay!
We talked about getting in front of clients, and you talked about how protective sellers are to their book of business and their accounts, and how they feel like they have a genuine stake in making sure that only the best stuff gets in front of them. And so, yet again, it's important to build that relationship and that partnership with the sales team so that they can feel comfortable putting your stuff out there. But it's also important to make sure that you are asking to demo things, asking for feedback, asking to put things out there in a time where it's timely to the sales team and the clients. Don't show them something now that won't be available for 5 years. It might not be the right time to get feedback. What else am I forgetting? Oh, we talked about the sales cycle and how it's important to understand the sales cycle, even though it's not predictive. It's formulaic, but not predictive. And so it's important to know that there are steps that need to be taken, but if you do all of them, there's no guarantee that you will get the sale. And if you miss one, there's no guarantee that you won't get the sale. And then we just wrapped up talking about what business development looks like and the fact that personalization is key in this market, making sure that you are being a genuine human and not just a robot, and building relationships which will likely start to transcend just emails and into physical and in-person interactions.
Mm-hmm.
That's my wrap up, Jackie. What did I miss?
Well done, Thomas. Well done.
You did amazing. Amazing. Well, remember, we will all...
Jackie does 99.9% of all wrap ups, so this is not a skill that I don't use very often.
Oh, you flexed it, man. You flexed it. Joseph, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today and giving us and our listeners such great insight about how to partner with sales and what it is to be in that world. We just value your time, so thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me, Jack. It's always good to spend time with you. And Tom, it's great to meet you, man. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine, my friend. I have taken away so many nuggets even for our business. So thank you.
Yes, we appreciate you. All right, well, that wraps up today's podcast. Let's say bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.